Hi everyone, Amber here from So Majestic. Welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for joining me. Today I'm going to show you how I do the applique for the dragon face for the Hugo handbag. This pattern is by Carbon Chic and it's amazing. It started as the original pattern comes with a cat and a dog face, and Demi has so many different add-ons. And the dragon is part of the mystical menagerie. And with Halloween coming up in October, I thought it would be perfect. And I love dragons. I love reading fantasy novels. So I have had this dragon in my head for a while. So last year I did a full tutorial for the bat. However, it had to fit in an hour, and I did not go into detail of how I did the applique for the face. So I am going to link below if you're looking for a full tutorial written as Demi wrote the pattern. The only thing that I had changed up was the webbing for the handle. That's a little bit different, but everything else is written according to her pattern. So I'm going to link that to below in the description. And then for today, I am going to walk you through how I did the applique for the dragon face. I did not add my interfacing on yet. I think I'm probably going to use Peltex, and it's going to be a little bit thick to applique through on my machine. So that's a personal preference. I walk you through how I cut it out using my Cricut machine, as well as attaching all the pieces, edge coating the edges with all 3 steps. And also I did attach the horns. If you are using piping on your bag, you do not want to attach your ears or horns yet. But because I'm using a domestic, I don't do the piping. I did. And the other thing I'll say is that the order that I put these on is really kind of a suggestion. So whatever works best for you. I just thought this would be really helpful to show you how my brain worked and how I applique this. And these are actually appliqued in. I'm holding them out because once I sew the rest of the bag, the frills will be pointing towards the outside. So I hope you enjoy the tutorial. If you do, please consider subscribing or giving a thumbs up. Helps my channel grow, and I appreciate it so much. So enjoy, and let me know what you think in the comments. Okay, so I have imported all the pieces into the Cricut design space. One thing that I love that Demi does is she puts every single SVG piece separate. And I like that because you can pull in only the file pieces that you need. So there's one horn and one frill. And what I did is I just duplicated them and then reversed it. So here you can see that I'm moving these around. So I did the same thing with the horns and the frills. My brain works best when I have all the colors matching what I want them to cut out. The only exception is these little pupils here. I'm not cutting them. I actually used rivets. So when you purchase the pattern, you have to make sure that you are unzipping the files. I'm not going to show you that because it is different for every machine. So once you have all the pieces that you want to use your Cricut for and they're ready, you can just hit make. I put my machine on the custom setting, and you can see here it's already split into the different colors, optimized for what I need. And then once I hit continue, I don't know if it's going to find it right away, but I have it on the custom setting. So I'm not using a maker. So that means I have to pick the setting. So under fabric, there's different ones. I believe I chose canvas, which was perfect for the black and white once it printed out, but I definitely needed something deeper for the pink face because it was a textured print. So I hope that you find this little bit helpful with the showing the Cricut and how all of these are in here. You might need to learn your machine a little bit more if you're not as familiar with Design Space, but once you become familiar, it is invaluable for cutting out the Hugo faces. I have all my materials laid out that I am going to use to start to make the face of the dragon for the Hugo bag. So I've had this idea for a while. I have this pink crocodile vinyl from My Punk Embroidery, as well as a solid black promo vinyl. That's also from My Punk Embroidery. And then I have this white marine vinyl from Joann's that I found in the scrap bin. So these are great. You can see I've already cut out some. It's nice that the Hugo bag has small applique pieces that you can really use scraps for. So I have 3 threads from Wizardry Stitchery. They're all Text 35. I have the bubblegum color, the white, and the black. I used pretty much exclusively Text 35 on all of my bags in the top and the bottom, and I have the different colors because I'm going to match them to the different pieces. In the back, I have some Decorative Light. I don't have a bunch left, so I'm not going to use it on all the pieces, but I will be using it on the dragon's horns and the little frill that comes out the sides, because you want those pieces that extend out of the bag to have structure. And I also have a bunch of edge paint here. Now, when you're appliquing, you could just because it's vinyl, it's not going to fray, but I still like to have a nice painted edge. So I have my base coat here from Mojo Sews. I have a black and white Angelus leather paint and a pink leather paint from Mojo Sews. So I highly recommend Mojo Sews. I'm just using up more of my paints before I get hers. I just don't believe in wasting stuff. And I have the Giardini top coat. So this is the 3rd layer. And same thing, I had a small bottle of base, ran out, so stocked up on Mojo Sews. And once I'm out of this, then I'll get her top coat as well. And this is the edge coating tool. It rolls, so it makes painting and putting on the top and base coats much easier. And now for the pupils in the eyes, you can use rivets. So I have rivets here and my hole punch. So the focus of this video is to show you how I use my Cricut machine to cut out these materials and then do the applique for the face. So these are some of the tools and materials I'm going to be using to make the face of the dragon for the Hugo bag. I have plenty of glitter clips and the long hair clips, a pair of snips, a seam ripper stiletto combo, some double-sided tape to hold the pieces in place. I have 3 different marking pens, a silver marking one, a chalk one, and a blue water-soluble. And I also have a lighter for burning the edges. If there's anything else that I use while I am appliquing the face, I will let you know. So I have a Cricut Air 2. It is about 9 years old. So I just have a straight blade in it, and my setting is to custom. This one was not made to cut fabric like the maker, but you can cut vinyl. What I do is put it on the custom setting, and then I choose one under the fabric, and as long as it's stuck down really well, it tends to cut. So, but I do have to, be mindful, and I highly recommend doing test cuts before you're using expensive vinyl that you don't want to ruin. So they make a variety of mats. This is just a standard grip. The purple one is for fabric, but I do not have one right now. So I'm just using this. And the one thing is I feel like the Cricut can be wasteful. So I try to be very mindful, because obviously only so much of this fits on the mat. And for here, I need 2 eyes and 4 horns, and none of them are really past this 4-inch mark. So I'm kind of just checking to see on my Cricut screen where they fit. I'm not sure if this is going to be enough. Yeah, I need it closer to this 4-inch line. So I am going to have to use a part of this here. So what I'm going to do is I always put my vinyl right side facing down. So you definitely want to mirror this in your settings. The Hugo is not a big deal, or some of it is not a big deal, because pieces are sometimes the same no matter what the sign. And so now what I'm going to do is just kind of trim this down out of the edges. That way this mat can fit nicely in the machine. Because it's a green mat, you can tape the edges down if you want. It will make it less likely for the vinyl to shift. And that's why I recommend cutting it with the right side of the vinyl facing down, because it's more likely to stick. If you have a brayer, definitely go over this. So I have set it to the canvas setting, and we're gonna do a test cut. We're gonna see how well it cuts. So this is for the 2 horns and the 2 eyes. And again, I do not recommend, even if you have a maker, using the rotary cutter for anything that has like a sharp edge. The straight point blade works better. So I'm just inserting the mat, and we're gonna see how hitting the go button, and we're gonna see how it cuts. I just be mindful if it does start to get pulling up, I'll pause it so that way I don't waste too much vinyl. And for this canvas setting, seems like it's doing 1 cut. You can do thicker ones. There's like leather, bonded fabrics, all different options under the custom setting. But I'd rather do less and cut over it than do something too thick and it starts scraping up the vinyl. Because some of them will do up to like 3 passes. So before, this is a tip for Cricut with any material you cut. Before ejecting your mat, what I'm going to do is I'm going to peel this back. And the canvas setting was enough to cut this marine vinyl. So you can see that they're peeling off perfectly. But let's say that they didn't. Let's say that only part of it was cut or didn't cut all the way through. If you do not eject your mat and you just push the Cricut button again to cut, it will cut in the exact same place. Once you eject it, it's really hard to match up cuts again, almost impossible. So that is a tip if you need another pass. All right, so we have our 4 horns. That's because they're going to look like this on the front of the Hugo, but because they're extending off the bag, we need a front side and a back side. So that is why 4 are cut and 2 of them are mirrored. So that way we'll be able to sew them together and they will look nice from both the front and the back. And then we have the white for the pupils. All right, so next we need our black. This is going to be for the frills. We have 2 sets that are going to hang off the side. The eyes, the center horns, and there's a piece that goes behind the mouth, which is like a reverse applique. This is the promo vinyl from My Punk Embroidery. It's thin, even a little bit thinner than the marine vinyl. So I think the canvas setting is going to be fine for this one as well. So I'm going to take it to the machine and do it with the same exact settings like we did for the horns. So I'm just giving this one more good press on. So you can see that a green mat works as long as it is sticky. I'm going to make sure that it's lined up. And this one I did not trim off. It fit within the mat, so I will trim off once our pieces are cut. Not sure if you can see that it's starting to move a little bit. That's because my fabric here is underneath the rollers. So far it's not moving enough that it's going to be a problem.
I'll cancel it.
And grab that out of the way. Oh. So you can see on that one, it did come up. I just paused it. So I'm trying to stick my hands in to re-stick it. And I'm going to keep going and see if I can make it work so I'm not wasting this vinyl. I just hit the pause button again. That because I just paused it instead of ejecting it, it is just picking up where it left off. And I'm not afraid to kind of like I'm doing here, just putting my hand on it, helping it stay down. This is where that purple matte would have been more sticky. Probably better. And like I said, if I didn't have these rollers going under, I should have moved them further out of the way. All right, let's see if this was salvageable. I think honestly most of it is. I have my first frill. It started to go a little haywire on the second one, but I think it cut most of it. So right here is the only place where it didn't. It's so small that what I can do is just use the mirror. I'll have to use one of these. That's the actual mirror of it. And trim that off later. So you can see, here's I have 1, 2, 3 frills. The 2 little horns that go on the forehead. The 2 eyeballs here. The nose piece. Okay, so you can see that my nose piece was a little bit cut off, but this is going to go behind the Hugo dragon cutout, like the big pink face. So even though it cut off a little bit here, it might be okay. So what I'm going to do is I just ejected it. And then this one here, I am just going to trace using the pattern piece and cut that out with scissors. So these frills are just like the horns. They're going to extend off the bag. So you have 2 pieces for each side that are mirrored. So this is where I trimmed off the rest. I have the 2 frills, 2 eyeballs, 2 smaller horns, mouth, nose piece. And so what I'm going to do is just lay this down so they match up. And then take my water soluble and just drew that line on. And then I'm just going to trim the rest here with scissors. It was so small that I was able to salvage it. This is all the leftover or excess. So now we'll see that these are going to be able to align perfectly. And that's also why I recommend doing that test cut, because your vinyl can shift, especially if you're using an Explore series instead of a Maker, which is not necessarily recommended for fabric. All right, and then we're going to do our last one, which is our pink. All right, so I was just going to film this after I already trimmed it, but I want to show you a little bit of my thought process. I want to make sure that this is centered so I don't catch those rollers again. And I was looking at this for like, ooh, which section do I want? And it has this really cool crocodile print down the center. So normally I wouldn't leave all this excess, but I am going to slightly fuss cut. So you can be really accurate and precise and measure along the side. I am just bringing it in a little bit from that edge. You can see that I curved it as I was cutting, so it's not perfectly straight. Our Hugo piece is going to be, our face is going to be cut from this, so it doesn't necessarily need to be perfect. So what I am definitely going to do is now put this right side facing down, and I'm centering it. And now this one here is not sticking as well because it has a bumpy textured front. So I am going to have to tape this down, I think. Or really hold it when it's cutting. I'm not sure. I'm going to grab some tape. I just have some painter's tape here. So I'm going to try to put it in the top corners because I feel like that is where it's most likely going to shift from. You can run it all the way down the edges, the sides, wherever you feel is best. Yeah, I think I'm going to put one on the bottom just for good measure. It doesn't go all the way down that far, but it is going to be cutting out nostrils and a mouth hole down here. So just to try to help it. This is my first time cutting this vinyl on the Cricut, so definitely a learning experience for both of us. So we're going to see how it goes. I am going to leave it on the custom setting for canvas. I do suspect that I may have to pass over it one more time. Again, I'm just... See, the rollers, the small gray ones, you're able to move. So I'm going to try to shift them a little bit. All right, it doesn't really want to move. So truthfully, it doesn't run too far on here. That's what causes it to shift when these rubber catches the edge. So let's hope it comes out okay. So it's cutting the nostril holes first and the mouth. I can see that the vinyl is picking up slightly. And like I said, we are going to have to test it. I can see here that if you notice that it is cut, but not all the way through, it is going to need another pass. So I'm not ejecting it. I'm just pushing that cut button again, and it will go over exactly where it already cut. The only thing that might throw it off is that this did bubble a little bit. So that may throw off the cuts here a tiny bit, but I'm hoping not too much. And I'm not pushing, where you see my hand like this, I'm not like pushing down enough that it's stopping pulling in. It's just giving light pressure to keep it from lifting. All right, and now we'll check again. So this vinyl is much thicker, as you can see. It still hasn't punctuated, like grammar. It hasn't punctured all the way through. I am going to put it one more time. I could adjust this to like the leather fabric setting, and it would probably do 3 cuts as it is. But I'd rather just do it this way, because sometimes 3 cuts is overkill, and then your vinyl really moves and it's a wreck. And you can make the Hugo even if you don't have a cutting machine. You could cut this by hand. I'm just not that precise or accurate, but it is possible. I'm trying to give it a little tug to see if it has gone through. I think I'm going to change it to a little bit thicker. So I'm going to go to the computer real quick. It's just off to the side. Actually, no, because if I do that, it will eject and not cut in the same spot. So I'm just going to go again. I'm going to keep using this until it cuts all the way through. So you can see here, it's starting to come up. I'm checking this center. So it is going, I'm afraid that if I keep doing this, it's going to keep, what's it called, shifting a little bit. So I'm going to eject it and then cut the rest with my scissors. It's most of the way through, so I feel like it has a good start. So I'm going to peel this off and then I'm going to show you. All right, so I have just pulled this off the machine. From the front, you pretty much cannot really tell that it has any cut marks. If you find where it's supposed to be, it is perforating a little bit. So you can see from the back much better. So what I'm going to do is I'm literally just going to take my scissors and slowly just follow that cut line. And like the edge doesn't have to be like entirely smooth and perfect, for the sense that this is going to get bound. There will be binding covering this. It's going to be the inside of the bag. The parts that's more that you will see is like the nose cut out in the center. It's just easier for me to do the outer edge first before I get to that. And my scissors, I can do this and you can see it's just kind of like going through. I don't even need to really cut, because it's just such a small piece of that last layer of vinyl that it didn't cut through. Could even take an X-Acto knife. And you can see down here, this one is almost all the way through as well. And if I bend it, you can really see. All right, so I'm going to do the rest of this in time lapse because I'm literally just following it slowly all the way around. Okay, so the battery died as I was pulling out the pieces, but what I was saying is that on the back, you can see where it was perforated by the cutting machine. So I already popped out the nostril holes. And now I'm going to do that same exact thing for the mouth. I might have to use scissors, but it seems like it was cutting through enough that I can just tear it off. All right, so now this is what our front looks like. We are supposed to put Decovil on this. I am going to wait because I don't have enough Decoville, so I think I am going to use like a, I'm not sure yet, like an 809, Pellon 809 or something that's a little bit firmer. So I'm actually going to applique before I do that. Also because with the dragon mouth, it is reverse applique. So you could put your Decoville on and just cut out where these spaces are. I guess you could have did it too before the cutting machine. So we're reverse appliquing this piece behind. And this is just a show real quick. I'm not going to quite do it yet. But so that way it is poking through. So that's called reverse applique. So what I'm going to do is once I stitch everything on, then I'm going to put my stiffer interfacing on the back. So now that these nostrils are cut out, I need to decide how I'm going to do all my pieces. So now for the frills that are going to go on the side for me, and for the horns that are going to go on the top, I am going to edge coat these and do the painting and the top coat because they are going to hang off the bag. So I'm going to set them to the side for now. The smaller pieces that are the eyes, so like the dragon eyes with the pupils over them, and then the horns for the top here, I am not going to edge coat them. My vinyl is so thin, it doesn't have a fuzzy back. If it had a fuzzy backing, I would at least put a base coat over this because it might fray or be noticeable. But these are not fuzzy, so I am not going to do that. What I'm going to do next is, off camera, there is a piece with the dragon face on it. It looks like a coloring sheet. It comes with each separate face. You can cut out the circles, and that way you know where exactly your piece can go. So I'm going to cut out the paper. It's going to sit over, and then I can figure out exactly where these horns go and where my eyes are supposed to go. That way I am not trying to figure it out or guessing and things are off center. All right, so what I want to show you is, I'm not going to show all the pieces. Like I said, I don't want to give it away, but this is an example of what the eye looks like. So I have my shape here, and I'm matching it up to make sure that it is facing the correct direction. And then we need to put this white part over it as like a pupil. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little bit of double-sided tape, and I ran out of mine, the kind that I had from Amazon. So I got this at the Dollar Tree, and it seems to work really, really well. Just be careful. They sell double-sided tape, and they also sell like the kind that you would use for like scrapbooking or cards that has like a foam on it. So just make sure you get the correct one. I always have trouble getting doesn't matter the brand, the paper off. And someone said to use my stiletto, but that's not right next to me. So we'll see if this is. There we go. All right, so how I'm going to do this is I'm putting this piece on, but I also cut a little bit so this can be folded back to make sure I have it in the exact spot. Okay, so I'm lining up that paper piece. And now I'm taking this eyeball, making sure that it is in the correct spot. And what I'm doing is I'm just holding it down at the bottom here where that paper is torn so I can peel it away. And then pressing down where that double-sided tape. So now, okay, so now I'm going to repeat it for the other side here off camera. Okay, so now that I have both of these stuck, I need to top stitch around
each of them. So I am going to put my white thread in so my color match, and I am going to hand crank these, leaving tails at the beginning, like the thread long. I'm not going to backstitch because I'm going to take the threads to the back and tie them in a knot. So don't backstitch at the beginning or the end.
Okay, so I have both eyes. I left the tails long. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my stiletto and I'm pulling up on the tails on the back. It creates a loop, and I'm going to catch that little loop with my stiletto. And when I pull it, it brings the thread to that back side. So I'm going to repeat it for the other one. If it's hard to catch, you can take like a regular sewing needle, like a hand sewing needle, and just thread it through that way. Usually with the stiletto, I can grab it, and then I'm just going to double or triple knot this on this back side here, and you can cut or singe the threads, but make sure if you're singeing them that you're not cutting off the little knot. You don't want them to come through. You could also use fray check or some type of glue. It's such a small piece. It's hard to catch it. You can also use fray check or a glue to help hold that knot on the backside as well.
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to do it one more time. And I'm probably not going to use glue or a fray check because, like I said, this is on the back side. So we're going to applique this down as well. So you're not going to see that knot at all. All right, so I got the triple knot, and then you can see that the little threads here, they're not long enough to poke out. So then when we put this on here, you're not going to see that. So I'm going to repeat the same thing on this side off camera. All right, so now that I have the white appliqued on, off camera, I'm going to take my pattern piece, the paper piece that I cut out, overlay it to here. I'm going to add the double-sided tape to the back of these eyeballs, and then once that paper piece is laid over, I have already cut out the eyeballs. So I'm going to be able to line these up and stick them exactly in place for the dragon. All right, so I have just used the sheet and have stuck my two eyeballs on. So now I'm going to take it to the machine, and I'm going to top stitch around the black part, changing out my thread. And you saw that I hand cranked for the white, and I'm going to do the same thing for the black now. All right, and so I hand cranked. You have to be really careful because of the how short of an area or small of an area there is here. So just be very mindful. And so now we're going to repeat the same exact process, just pulling it to the back and tying off the threads again. It's the same exact process where I'm kind of tugging up, pulling through the loop, and then I'm going to tie all the threads. So I'm going to do that rest of that off camera since I've already showed you how to do it. Right, so I have just tied them off. Now we have the eyes done. I'm going to do the two little horns here. I've just thought about it. I really probably should have done them white to match the horns that are going to come off the bag. But that's fine. I'm still going to do it like this. I'm going to repeat the same process like I did for the eyeball. I am going to put the double-sided tape on the back, take my paper and line them up, make sure that they're in the correct area, and then stitch around both of them. All right, so I have them stuck in place. So now I'm going to take it to the machine, repeat the same exact process that I did for the eyes here. All right, so our two horns are sewed on. This one looks like is a little bit curved to the right, but I'm not going to worry about it. It's not a huge deal. It must have shifted as I was either hand cranking or sticking it on. If you want to double check, if you needed to, you could pull it off now. But I'm going to repeat the same process, tying these off on the back. All right, so I have tied them off on the back. The next thing I want to do, even though it means me changing colors again, I want to save these for last because I still need to put the Decoville inside and I'm going to be edge coating them. So I am going to put this mouthpiece on the back. So this is called reverse applique because this is going to be on the backhand side here. And we want to make sure that it is covering up our nostril holes and our mouth with enough space to, when we reverse this, we're going to sew on the pink side. So we're going to stitch around that nostril hole here on the right hand side in the mouth. So you can see that piece was cut a little bit smaller when I had originally cut it on the Cricut. So I'm just making sure that it is in a good spot. And then you can put some double-sided tape actually on here. I think that's what I'm gonna do. Pull this off, put some double-sided tape, and then once it's stuck, I'm gonna bring it to the machine and stitch around the nostril holes and the entire mouth. And I'm gonna change out to this pink thread that will match a little bit better than having it outlined in black.
Hold me close till I get up. Time is barely on our side. I don't wanna waste what's left. The storms we chase.
All right, so I have just finished top stitching around the nostrils and the mouth, and you can see that it blends in pretty well. So I am going to flip it to the back, pull all my threads to the back, and tie off. All right, so what I have done next are the little flaps for the side and the horns. I am prepping them. I am going to edge coat these, so this might be something that you want to do first. When you're putting this face together, there's not really a specific order unless you're adding piping. That will change when you sew on the horns or ears or whatever your face may be. So definitely take this video with a grain of salt and know that this is not like necessarily the steps you have to follow in this order. So the horns of the dragon and the little flaps on the side are going to hang off. So I have put some Decoville light on each of these. I just had a bunch of scraps of Decoville, like you could see here. I traced the horn and the flap, and then you can see I cut out. I didn't cut on the line because I don't want these going all the way to the edge. We are going to be sewing these together, and if it's to the edge, I'm afraid that you would see that stabilizer. So with one layer of the Decoville light, it's still going to be a little floppy. You could put two if you want. You could use Peltex. That was the name of the interfacing that I couldn't think of before. You could double up SF101 or lightweight. So whatever, I recommend really whatever you have, whatever you think will work best for you. And so now what we're going to do before edge coating these, especially the flaps on the sides, I am going to put them wrong sides together, clip them, and I'm going to sew all the way around the edges, holding these together. because what's going to happen is we're going to use our template after, and these are going to be sewn on the edge here, facing the eyes. So that way, after we put our bag together and the gusset is put on, they will stick out like that. Now with the horns, we're going to do the same thing. It's just a little bit different of a step. The horns are attached just like the ears are in the original cat or dog bag. So that means that we are adding these using rivets. So if you look very closely, this one doesn't have, I have one with Ecoville, one without. I have marked very lightly on the edges with a silver marking pen. You definitely want to check that your, it will come off with like a baby wipe. So whatever you're marking, you will see that if it doesn't come off. So don't use something permanent. For these, I'm only sewing from that mark up around the top and stopping at this second one. If I was doing, like, for example, the bat with the ears, I would do the same thing, because we need to be able to open this to put a rivet on, to put it on the bag, and then we're going to stitch around this later, also holding it onto the bag. So just to repeat that, for these side flaps, I'm sewing all the way around using my top stitch length. From the horns, I am only going to those 2 markings. And I am going to obviously switch out my thread color so that way it matches. The other thing I forgot to say is that when you are putting these together, you want to make sure that you are extremely accurate, as clipping the best as you can, especially if you're not edge coating, because you will see these raw edges. And what I do is I'm going to clip them, hold them together, and then if there's anything that's really like overhanging, like here I might have a little bit of an overhang, I'm going to trim that off after. You can also use glue to glue them together, or double-sided tape to help you so they do not shift. So those are just different tips to help you before you take it to your machine.
Till I get up, time is barely on our side. I don't want to waste what's left.
All right, so I have just top stitched around. You can see that it has shifted a little bit. So I am just going to trim where there's an overhang. I did backstitch on these. This one I did on the longer edge because that will be hidden. But on the ears I do, just because we're going to stitch again and secure these on after, or not ears, these are horns because we're doing a dragon, but it would be ears on another type of face. And the back stitch is going to blend in, especially if you're using the same thread. So I'm not really worried about it. So now what I'm going to do is just take my time and really try to make these edges even. So if there's any overhang, I am trimming them off, because our next step is preparing it for the edge coat, and we really want these to be as even as possible. So I'm going to do the rest of this off camera. I'm using a big pair of scissors. If you have smaller ones that fit in better, definitely use those. I do not have any smaller pair for that would fit for like this. I have just like thread snips and stuff. Okay, and then I'm going to come back on and show you once these are both trimmed up.
And then
All right, so I have trimmed all the edges, and now I am going to edge coat. So I use a 3-step process. I highly recommend that. I don't recommend using Sharpies or marker to fill in the edges. I feel like it tends to come off. So I have Mojo Sew's base coat, I have Angelus leather paint, and a roller. These I got off of Amazon, and I have Giardini top coat. I definitely recommend using the same brand of all 3, but I haven't had a problem. I don't want to waste anything, so I ran out of base coat. That's why I bought Mojo Sew's,
And once I'm done with the top coat of the paint, I'll buy more Mojo Sews because I really like her stuff. So the first step is taking your base coat and rolling it on to the edge. It's a little chunky. I had to mix it a little bit. I've had it for a while. So I probably should mix it up a little bit, stir it a little bit better, but that's fine. And so I'm putting a layer of base coat around all of the edges. Even though this is not sewed close, I'm still going to do this because I want it to kind of match up and look similar when we sew it onto the bag here, onto the face. So if I don't put this on now, it's going to look different. But what I'm really trying to do is fill in the gaps between my two layers. So this may take 1 or 2 coats of base coat. So once I have it all the way around, and this tool really makes it easy. At first I didn't have this tool and I was just using like a paintbrush trying to put it on, and this tool makes like a night and day difference. Okay, so once I have this on, I have these little cups. I just tip them upside down, got them at the dollar store, and rest my piece. That way it is nice and going to be able to dry. And I'm going to repeat this process for all 4 of my pieces. So once I'm done with the base coat, I'm going to come back on and show you. All right, so I have 1 coat on and it's been about a half an hour. It's definitely dry, but I can still see where it's like separating a little bit, the layers. So I'm going to put another layer of base coat on. Some people sand between their layers. You can if you find it's really bumpy or like you have like clumps and stuff. But I generally don't sand between my layers because I find I end up taking off more than I should. So I'm going to add that second base coat. I'm going to do it not on camera because it's the same exact way as I've already done these. All right, so I have put the 2 layers of the base coat on. So now I am going to put the actual paint. So I'm using the same roller for both the black and the white. Obviously, I'll have to wash it in between that. So again, this tool just makes it so easy to apply the paint. It goes on nice and smooth with the roller. So I'm just carefully doing the edges all the way around. Once it dries, depending on the color, sometimes I find that it might need a second coat. Like if it is a lighter color paint, I usually do 2. But for the black, it should be fine with just 1 layer. And I put a very little bit on because I don't want it to like drip down the sides. So basically, same way we put that base coat, we're going to go all the way around and leave it to dry. Depending how thick you put your coats, it could depend. I usually find that the layer that takes the longest to dry for me is the top coat, but that's because I like to put it on a little bit thicker and make sure everything is smoothed out. If you are using sandpaper and sanding between each layer, you might not need to put it so thick. But like I said before, I find that when I do that, I end up sanding too hard and like removing everything. So I'm going to continue the rest of this off camera because it's literally just this process. I'm going to put it on the little cup to dry and wash the tool, do the white of the horns, and I'm leaving this blank because this is gonna get in the seams. And for the horn section, I'm gonna go all the way around, even on the part
that is not sewn together, because like I said before, that's going to get sewn afterwards, and once we sew it onto our face, we can't really edge coat it because it's right up against the pink material. So that's why I'm going to do that all now. So I'm going to finish the rest off camera. Alright, so I have put the layer of paint on. So now I'm going to do the top coat. And I highly recommend a top coat. It's kind of what seals everything in. And without it, I feel like you can't expect the, the process to work properly. I dumped that in way too much. But it is literally the same steps. This is the glossy, and I'm just rolling it on. This I do sometimes put on like 3 layers, or put it on a little bit thicker, so that way anything, it smooths itself out basically. So if there's like little bumps or ridges, you might not feel them after. And that's what I prefer to do instead of sanding. The downside to it is that sometimes then it takes a little bit longer to dry. So I'm doing the horn just so I can show you down here where we're still gonna have to open this to put on the rivet to attach the horn to the face. I'm still going over the edges, like I said, just so it has that nice finished look. Whereas down here, these will stay open, the 2 sides, because they're not sewn together yet. Up here, where they're sewn together, I want to make sure that this top coat is really like filling in that gap if it hasn't already done so. So I'm going to repeat that process for all the different pieces here, and I might put 2 to 3 layers depending on how they look. Alright, so the top coat is dry on both the horns and the side flaps. So I am going to attach them. Before I do that, the little eyeballs, you can use rivets to mark them or to represent them. And that is what I plan on doing. So what I'm going to do real quick is I am just lining them up on top. And I am going to mark it through just by like punching a little hole in the paper. And this is my silver marking pen. Once I sew on I'm gonna have to punch it through. There was tape on it. I was like, why is that so difficult to get through? It's just paper, but there was some tape there. Because once I sew on the little side flaps, it's going to make it harder for me to get my hole punch in, because I have a handheld hole punch. I don't have a hole punch for my press. So I'm afraid if I punch those holes afterward, because once these are on the side, in order to fold this up, it's going to cover the eye a tiny bit. So while I can, I am going to punch this, and I'm going to put the rivet on when I attach the horns. So this is just prepping it right now. You can see I'm just folding my like the rest of the face back in order to reach it. All right, so now that I have the eyes pressed, and they're a little bit off center, I don't think I necessarily lined this one up that great. That's okay. But what I'm going to do is on our face for the dragon that we have cut out, the markings are on here for the left and right flaps. So I'm going to line them up to make sure that I have them correct. We want them folded or pointed in, and we're just going to baste along this edge here, because when we attach our gusset later on, it's going to fold back, and this is going to fold out. So whatever side that you think looks better of your little frills, you want to make sure that's the side facing down, because that's the side that you're actually going to see more of. So I'm going to clip them off camera so I'm not giving away the pattern. Alright, so I have just clipped the frills on. I'm going to take it to the machine and just base stitch in place along the edge here. Alright, so I have a couple things going on here. I just have stitched down the little frills on the side. So like I said, this will open up like this. Now we have to attach the horns. If you are adding piping on your bag, you need to do this after the piping. I do not add piping, so I'm going to do it now. On the original Hugo with the cat and the dog, there are marks for where to put your rivet through on the actual piece. On the dragon, they don't show it, so I am just going to mark and rivet on. So this is why this is able to open. So I'm just going to mark my own, and the same with this side, open it up. And I don't think it matters really exactly where the rivet goes. The only thing that is definitely recommended is we are going to hole punch this, rivet it on. If you think that your rivet's going to show through the front, you might want to add some extra interfacing. And the same thing on the back here. I have not put the Decoville light on. It is recommended to do it before. I am going to use SF101 and a layer of Peltex, so I'm just doing that after. I didn't want to have to try sewing through Peltex. So after we rivet it, then we're going to stitch the rest of this down, which is why we only stitched to that certain area on each side. So these don't stick off all that much. I'm not really worried about them pulling, but especially if you're doing like one where the ears come off more, that's why it's recommended to not tie these off to the back, to actually backstitch here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to get my handheld hole punch in as far as I can. If you have a what's it called, like the press that can do a hole punch, this will be much easier. I do have a Japanese hole punch, but that one doesn't always go all the way through. And I'm just I have clips holding this in place, so I know where they're supposed to be. Hopefully they do not shift. All right, so now that I have punched the holes, for the inside here, it doesn't matter underneath what color rivet you do, you are not going to see them. But I am also using rivets for the eyeballs. So I am going to be using this gold color. If you need to add some extra padding on the back, depending on the length of your rivet, you might need to do that. Sometimes they use like a scrap of waterproof canvas or water resistant canvas. For this one here, I have the most of the antique bronze, I think I'm going to use for this one. I'm debating if I should use smaller. I should probably use the medium, just to make sure that they fit on properly. And this kit I just got off of Amazon. Honestly, it works great. Came with 3 different sizes, so I don't know the exact measurements of each of these, but it has worked very well for what I need. And it comes with the hand setting tools, so where you could use like a hammer. I also have an arbor press that I used for a while, and then for last Christmas I finally got one of the cam snap presses It does work really well, but it isn't like 100% necessary. You can do rivets without the press, so don't feel like you have to spend a ton of money, especially if you're just starting out. And I'm just adding the caps. So back here, if you had too much spacing, this is where you could put like a piece of the waterproof canvas or water resistant canvas. Okay. And so I'm going to slide my press over, and I'm going to show you how I press them. All right, so for the eyeballs, I am going to put them down, and I'm actually going to pull back the little frill. So I'm going to lay them face down, making sure that the cap is centered, and then pressing down on my press. And you'll be able to feel them snap into place. So the front looks perfect. I'm going to do the same over here. I'm just feeling to make sure that I line it up in the center. All right, so my eyes are set. And now for this one here, the horns, these are going to be hidden, so I'm just doing it where I can see better because I want to be able to fold back that top part. So again, we're going to do that the same exact way. Okay, that one is set. Do that over here as well. And you don't really feel them snap into place with the hammer because you're just, hammering down onto it. But with both the arbor press and this cam snap press, I do feel them when they set. All right, so now that they are all set, this is what it looks like from the back. So again, if you want to add an extra piece of interfacing here, because now our last step is we are going to take it to the machine, and you need to make sure you pull your frill out of the way, and you're going to top stitch around the rest of this ear. I mean, not ear. I keep calling it ear because on the other animals that are ears. For this one, it is horns. So we are going to just top stitch, and now that will hold both our horns into place, which is why I finished the edges with the edge coat, because once we sew this down, you're going to see that you cannot get to it then. All right, so we have just finished attaching the horns. So you can see I top stitch it in. I just back stitch at the beginning and the end. It does blend in, and these again are folded in, but when we make it, it's going to be folded out. And this is what the back side looks. You may have your extra interfacing. So this is just how I did my dragon face to kind of help you think it out, or what I do. I hope you found it helpful, and just remember, this is not necessarily the way you have to do it. So if you find another way or a different order of putting these on that works better for you, then that's great too. So I hope you found it helpful, and I'll see you next time. All right, so we have just finished up appliquing our dragon face. I hope you found the tutorial helpful. Like I said, as far as interfacings, the order that I do all this, it's really just a suggestion. Once you know your machine, figure out what works best for you. And the same thing with edge coating, that is also a suggestion. It is not a requirement. So do not feel like you have to do things the exact way that I did. I'm not sure if I'm going to sew the rest of this up as a live or do a more structured tutorial, but I'll definitely have a follow-up. And like I said, I will have a link to my tutorial for the Bat Hugo handbag. And again, I hope you enjoyed. If you do, please consider subscribing or giving a thumbs up. It helps my channel grow, and I appreciate it so much. Thanks. See you next time.